Hey, this is John McEuen, and you're listening to the Nothing Shocking podcast.
Want to know what's going on in the world of music? Then tune in to the Nothing Shocking podcast, a non-genre based, all-ages friendly rock and roll program. Join us weekly for interviews with all your favorite rock stars from the mainstream to the underground. You can find us at nothingshocking.libsyn.com or anywhere you download podcasts.
We're putting the band back together.
The numbers all go to 11.
I'm talking about bands that rock. Led Zeppelin. What about Sabbath? AC/DC. Motorhead.
Does that mean it's louder? Is it any louder?
Well, it's one louder, isn't it?
We're not worthy! We're not worthy!
Why don't you just make 10 louder and make 10 be the top number and make that a little louder?
These go to 11.
I get up off the ground and raise my head. Days like this, think I should be dead. One for Satan, two for me. Let's cheat the devil, it's fun, don't you agree?
Welcome to the Nothing Shocking podcast. I'm your co-host, Jeff Untied, and with me in Dog Bowl Studio is Coach Nez. You can find the Nothing Shocking podcast on Libsyn or any podcatchers. Like our Facebook page or follow us on X at No Shock Pod.
You can also find the Nothing Shocking podcast on Rock Rage Radio every Sunday morning at 7 a.m. Central Time. Our sponsor is Ragged Records, located in downtown Rock Island, Illinois, and downtown Davenport, Iowa. We'd like to thank the Hong Kong Sleepover for allowing us to use their music for our intro and bumper ending. Tonight's guest is
John McEuen, formerly of the Nitty Gritty Dirt Band.
Yeah, he's promoting his newest solo endeavor, The Newsman, a man of record. It's a spoken word album, correct?
Yeah, he's a folk and bluegrass icon.
Yeah, and a hell of a banjo player, right?
Yeah.
Hey, let's get to the interview.
All right, good night.
Good night. John, welcome to the Nothing Shocking podcast. I'd like to introduce you, my co-host, Jeff Untied.
John, thanks for joining us tonight.
Oh, my pleasure. Like I said to my mom, thanks for having me.
Fantastic. It's an honor. So let's get right into this. This past April, you released The Newsman, a man of record. The spoken word concept for this album is a new endeavor for you. Talk a little bit more about this new creative endeavor.
Well, it's just the direction I felt like I needed to go and to solidify it. I've been doing spoken word stuff one year and one another year. Then I've done the Mountain Whippoorwill. I did that for 30 years with Nitty Gritty Dirt Band.
Yeah.
I spent 50 years with overall. But I did the Mountain Whippoorwill, which is one of the stories on here, for 30 or maybe more years. And these stories, I took quite a while to make this album. I spent 12 years putting it together. In the meantime, I made a Dirt Band album and 3 other records. So
Yeah.
this was a back burner thing that I saved for front burner. When Tom Hanks put out News of the World, that spurred me on. I've got to finish this album. You remember his movie News of the World?
Yes.
It was about a guy going out and telling people about the news in 1880. He was just reading newspapers in towns. And I thought, well, he was telling stories, and I've got to tell these stories. I got to tell them to as many people as I can get to listen. And I've been getting quite a few to listen. It's really great.
Fantastic.
Yeah. It's very interesting, the spoken word concept. Can you talk a little bit about, the title track, The Newsman, and the ideas behind it?
Well, the spoken word concept is kind of misleading because it sounds like you're just reading something. Yeah. But what it is it's words with music behind it. And that's been around a long time, from Big Bad John to A Boy Named Sue to King Tut. King Tut was the Nitty Gritty Dirt Band playing that music, by the way. And Arlo Guthrie did a lot of spoken words, and Charlie Daniels' Devil Went Down to Georgia, and Hank Williams Sr. did Fly Trouble. In fact, that's where I got Fly Trouble, and which is one of the cuts on here, a 1948 cut. And what you do with spoken word is you try and find music that fits behind and amplifies or modifies, or it just fits the story. And I felt like that was a real challenge, and I did that for 10 different cuts. Well, actually, I did it from like 14, but I dumped a few.
Yeah, you got to whittle it down somewhere.
With your origins in songwriting and recording in the country and bluegrass genres, was it difficult for you to evolve into the spoken word concept, or did it come pretty naturally to you?
Well, I don't know if anything I've done comes naturally to me, although a lot of people say, you sound like a natural. I kind of go, well, okay, thank you. I hope it's a good natural. But it is something that I have done with film score music. I've scored about 14 films, documentaries. I was doing one for Tommy Lee Jones. And Tommy Lee taught me something that was very important. He goes, yeah, John, that music when Huey Calloway is walking into the store is really good, but that other one, when he's talking to Spring Renfro, sounds like a bunch of goddamn Nashville elevator music. Let me change that so you don't have to edit that out. Or do you?
No, don't worry about it.
Okay, I was quoting. Anyway. And I said, well, he said, what do you think of that cue? And I said, well, that's the one I was just starting to change. I don't like it either. What do you not like about it? He says, it's getting in the way. And what he meant was when the person starts saying, wow, listen to that score. What a great score. Well, you're not serving the picture. Yeah. You're detracting from the picture. Like if something is going on and Willie Nelson starts singing, everybody goes, hey, there's Willie Nelson. So you get somebody that's an invisible singer, unless it's a Willie Nelson record coming out of the radio or in a bar, a bar band playing a Willie Nelson song, or Willie's on stage playing or something. But you don't want to distract from the picture. You want to support it. And that's the way you do the music for this, was to support the words. And hopefully in a way that brings them to life for people, brings these stories to life, because each story is a little bit different.
One of my favorites is actually kind of a song I think you sing on it, Fly Trouble.
Yeah, what about it?
Well, is there a story behind that one?
Well, yeah, Hank Williams was also known as Luke the Drifter. He had a lot of things he wanted to record, and Luke the Drifter was his other persona, and he would record talking blues records, like "We're Still a Living, So Everything's Okay," and the crops didn't get any rain, and nothing's growing, and the chickens all died, but we're still a living, so everything's okay. Well, Fly Trouble was one of his 1948. Hank Williams with music behind him. Did you ever sit straight up in bed with something circling around your head? That's what it is. It whizzes by and it's just one pesky little fly. Shake your head and twitch your nose. Settle down to sweet repose. Then when you're just about to doze, Fly Trouble. Now, if you put the right music behind that, it makes it exciting. Yeah, it makes it fun to listen to. And anyway, so that's Hank's contribution. My brother told me I should put that in there, and my brother was very influential in my life. He was the manager of Nitty Gritty Dirt Band, and he produced our records. He produced that "Will the Circle Be Unbroken" album, the landmark album that's in the Grammy Hall of Fame and the Library of Congress. And anyway, so when Bill said, you ought to do Fly Trouble, I listened. And I'm really glad I did. I played my best acoustic guitar solo and lap steel solo on any of any record I've played it on. And that's the other thing. I got to do this, take my time, and do what I wanted. And I figure if this bombs, I know who to blame, me.
There you go. Yeah.
Well, you know, are there any plans for you to take the Newsman on tour, playing it live? I'm pretty sure that you have some fans out there that are wanting some live stuff from you. So, what are the plans?
Well, the plans are for me to do what I do as long as I can, and I do some of these pieces out on the road. I'm on the road right now. I'm playing Raleigh, North Carolina tomorrow night,
Awesome.
and then Black Mountain, and then Tennessee, and anyway, and I do some of these pieces in the set. You can't do them all.
Right.
When somebody goes out and does all of their new album and leaves all the old stuff behind, I mean, I've got to do Bojangles every night, and I'm glad. I'm lucky to have that. Mr. Bojangles was a huge record for the Nitty Gritty Dirt Band, and some of Shelley's Blues and House at Pooh Corner and some of those songs. Those are good to do, but so you put those in. And then I have some other music of my own that I do, the String Wizards albums that I've made. I do a couple songs from there, and I do some from the Newsman. And it's really fun. I really have a good time on stage.
Fantastic.
Yeah.
I mean, I can't sit at home and say, honey, you want to hear the song about the dead dog again?
Absolutely not.
Right. Well, so you took it solo in 1991. Between 1991 and 97, you had 4 albums, and then fast forward a few years in the late 2000s, you've had a couple more. Can you talk a little bit about that decision to maybe leave the Nitty Gritty Dirt Band and go solo?
About which decision?
About going solo and doing some solo.
In 91?
Yeah.
Well, I went away from the Dirt Band in the 90s because it was just, I couldn't handle the Democratic group anymore because I was always a single vote.
Oh, yeah.
The single vote for, I want to do an instrumental. And I was getting voted out. Jimmy Ibbotson was supporting me, but then that wasn't happening. And so, there's no more instrumentals on the album. So I don't get to say anything. I get to play the opening 8 seconds on this song, and then some jerk starts singing. But, and it just got irritating having basically no voice. And I didn't like the direction of the songs that were being picked. I didn't like some of the business decisions, and neither did the band, come to think of it. And and I was getting divorced. And I had 6 kids, and I had to handle that.
Yeah.
Getting divorced with no kids is tough, but with 6, oh my gosh, they were 8 through 16, and I had a lot to handle there, and so I went away. But I came back in 2002, and I was really proud of the fact that the band's manager wrote all of us a letter saying, John should be back in the band, and if you're worried about making less money, you won't. You're going to make more money. And we'll divide it equally. I went, okay, that sounds good to me. But then I went back in 2002 till 2018. In that time period, the group only made 2 albums.
Yeah.
And that isn't enough. I made 5 albums. I promoted, I bought for concerts approximately 30 acts. I promoted a couple of shows. I did some corporate shows. I did 5 film scores and made several albums. And the band made 2 albums.
Yeah.
It's been 16 years. It's like, something. I told them, you guys are abusing the privilege we have of playing music for people. It's sure not everyone's going to like the new music, but some of them will expect to hear something, and you never know, something might click.
That's right.
And you know, it's happened before. Fishing in the Dark, after 30 years, they put out Fishing in the Dark. Long Hard Road, the first #1 of the Nitty Gritty Dirt Band, took 17 years to get. It was around 1982. Then it was 10 years later for Fishing in the Dark, and then 10 years later for Circle B Unbroken reissue and Volume 3, and then 20 years of nothing. 20 years of nothing. And I left. Anyway.
Go ahead, Jeff.
Well, we just got done talking to William Lee Golden, and he was highly complimentary of the Nitty Gritty Dirt Band, and of course you. Can you talk a little bit about the early band days of, and maybe your interactions with the Oak Ridge Boys?
Oh, well, it was great. Yeah. And the band, don't get me wrong about Nitty Gritty Dirt Band. I have no qualms. I was just outvoted a bunch of times, but what I voted on, what we did together was can't be matched.
Oh, yeah.
What we did together was a wonderful thing. I mean, we opened for Jack Benny 4 times.
Oh, wow.
Jack Benny 4 times. 8 times we had Sonny Moore and his Roustabouts open for the Dirt Band. That was one of our first road shows in 1967. It's a dog act, 17 dogs. I knew I loved show business. It was 1967. We were doing 2 shows a day, and between the shows, Sonny Moore said, "Hey, I used to have long hair like that, like you boys do. I had it, and the Beatles got it. They followed me." Oh, really? Yeah. You want to come on my bus? Oh, yeah, I'll take a look at your bus. Me and the dogs travel on the bus. 17 dogs lived on this bus with them, and it smelled like it. Oh. I went on the bus, and he holds up an 8x10 picture of a German Shepherd. He says, "This is Gretchen. She's beautiful, isn't she?" I go, "Well, yeah, that's a nice-looking dog." "Yeah, she was quite a lover. I got her ashes and back. You want to see them?" And I knew that I liked show business because of that. I said, if this guy is in my first month on the road, my gosh, it's going to get weird out there. And then I met Jim Morrison.
Yeah.
And he thought he was weird, but no, he didn't hold a candle to Sonny Moore.
Well, let's talk a little bit about John McEuen, the live performance. With all your years in the Nitty Gritty Dirt Band and all of your solo stuff, since how difficult is it for you to put a set list together and to go out and play, and what songs to play and what not? Because I know you have to feel like you're kind of torn about, oh, I'm leaving this track or these songs off. How does it work for you?
I look at the audience, and I have a couple of songs that I start with, and often I start with a ballad of Jed Clampett because that's how I started playing. Mm-hmm. The audience sings along, and I said, "Boy, aren't we stupid?" Can you imagine? I'm getting paid to do this, play Jed Clampett, and have you all sing, and what a great job to have. I'm not even working, but you are anyway. So horsing around like that is a good way to start a show. But I get into doing some of my favorite Dirt Band songs, like Long Hard Road or Bojangles or Dance Little Jean sometimes. Jimmy Ibbotson songs a lot. Jimmy Ibbotson was a great writer, singer, and probably the most creative voice of the band. And when he was in it, and I like to do some of his stuff. And then I have music that I've recorded on my own that I'm very proud of, and I will throw one of them in. I don't do a lot of new stuff because, like I say, if you do too much new stuff, then people tune out after a while or something, You have to do music that reaches people. And I try and do things that go over, and they do. So I keep doing them. When something doesn't go over, I turn to the guys and say, "That's the last time we're doing that one." Okay.
Yeah, you alluded earlier to King Tut and the Nitty Gritty Dirt Band being the backup band. Can you talk a little bit about, in 2009, you helped with Steve Martin's The Crow, new songs for the Five-String Banjo. Can you talk a little bit about your contributions to that album?
Oh, yeah. I moved to New York City in late 2008 and 9 and 10, because I wanted to make some things happen. And 5 or 6 things did happen. I played at Levon Helm's 70th birthday party.
Nice.
He called me up and asked me to come, and I went, sure. And then I played with Pete Seeger twice. Wow, was that ever fun? And Tom Chapin. And anyway, Steve called me one day and said, hey, are you in town? I couldn't believe that people would say that about New York, but we were from L.A. And when you're from L.A., everybody always says, are you in town? Yeah, I'm in this town that's 95 miles by 85 miles, this town. But he said, are you in town? I said, yeah, I am. Can you come over to my place? And I went over to his apartment, which was Upper West Side, right off of Central Park. And I listened to 6 banjo tunes that he'd recorded on his computer, just the banjo. And he said, what do you think of those? I said, I think they are wonderful. I don't like the third one as much as all the others, but it could be something. And, stuff like that. And I said, I think I should produce an album on you, and it should be all your music. Because he was talking about doing a standard bluegrass tune and somebody sing this song. I said, no, you should do it all your music. I don't have enough songs. Well, you can write a couple and take some time, write a couple. And he did. And we started recording a few weeks later, and it was wonderful. As it came along, he had a neat song called Pretty Flowers, that I says, Vince Gill and Dolly Parton ought to sing that. And Steve was like, well, how do you think we can get him to do it? I says, well, I'm producing your album. It's a record producer's job. Hang on a second. And I hit my phone. Hello, Vince. This is John. Yeah, hi, how you doing? Oh, pretty good. Hey, I'm producing a Steve Martin album. Would you sing one of the songs? Okay, great. I'll call you with the information. Bye-bye. And I said, Steve, Vince is in.
That's awesome.
Now, Dolly, I have to send her faxes because, in 2010, that's how she communicated, with faxes. And she faxed me back and forth. We faxed, and she says, well, if you send me that song, I'll see if I can do it justice. If I can do it good enough, I'll be glad to sing it with Vince. And so then I had Dolly and Vince, and I get Earl Scruggs, and then a couple other people to contribute, and his music was really powerful.
Yes,
I was jealous. He had written an album's worth of new banjo music, and what was neat was I was getting to frame it, putting a frame around it, and presenting it, and we won a Grammy. I said, Steve, this is going to get nominated for a Grammy. I don't know if it's going to win, but it's going to get nominated. You think so? Oh, yeah. And then it ended up winning.
Yes, amazing.
2 guys from Orange County, California, winning a Grammy.
I know, that's so cool. I was going to ask you a little bit about the banjo. Let's talk about the banjo for a minute. That's just, not being able to play, that just seems like a pretty difficult. Is it a difficult instrument to learn because with all the different picking styles and stuff?
Well, if you want to learn a bunch of different styles, it can be difficult. But it can be difficult if you're just trying to learn one style, like classical or bluegrass really good, much like Earl as you can. There's people that have played bluegrass for 20 years that are still working at it.
Yeah.
And if you want to play it, I like to play banjo. I like to frail, which is like claw hammer, and I like to use bare fingers to play like classical music. I play with picks for bluegrass. I use different tunings for the banjo. I use 13 different tunings for minor key and modal key and just some strange tunings that make it sound different. And it can also be played easily. You can use it as a backup for your singing, just with the Pete Seeger brush thumb kind of. I can't give you. I don't have my banjo with me, so I can give you an example. But there's an easy way to play it.
Fantastic.
Nice. We ask artists all the time about, like, guitarists, like how many guitars they have or different things like that. Do you have a few banjos, or do you just have one trusty one that you mostly play with? How's it work?
Oh, I've got 6 or 7.
Nice.
And a couple that I use. A Deering banjo is the main one I use, made by the Deering Company. They made me a John McEuen model where I told them things to put on it and do. And it sounds really good. And I have a couple others that are special to me. I got one in one museum and one in Phoenix. My first banjo was in the Museum of Instruments Museum. I mean, Musical Instrument Museum. Mm-hmm. It's not redundant. Museum of Instruments Museum. And that's a great museum. It's I put an exhibit together with all the with all the instruments that were used with the Dirt Band prior to the Circle Be Unbroken album and on the way to getting there. And that's been there for 10 years. And then there's one in the Country Music Hall of Fame. That's where my Circle Be Unbroken banjo is. There's a special exhibit on the Nitty Gritty Dirt Band that we're all part of. I mean, I was there for 50 years, so I'm still kind of part of that. And it's a nice exhibit called the Western Edge. If you're in Nashville, go see the Western Edge exhibit.
Fantastic.
Yeah.
I want to bring this back to 2016. You released Made in Brooklyn. The album is a fusion of various genres: folk, Americana, bluegrass, Dixieland, etc. Can you tell our listeners about the creativity behind that album?
Oh, I wanted to make a record that was fun to listen to. And I picked some songs that I wrote. I picked some songs that other people wrote. I picked a couple of traditional songs. I took one song from William Blake, the British poet, and put bluegrass music to it, and had the British poet, Tiger, Tiger, Burning Bright. He was popular in the 1800s. And they did a bluegrass tune from sounding like the 1870s. And got some people involved. I got David Bromberg. Mm-hmm. Hey, David, would you play on this album on a couple cuts? He goes, I'll bring everything. I want to do it all. So that was really nice of him. And he played electric guitar on one cut on a song that I've been trying to get recorded for 25 years. And a song that Bernie Ledden wrote called She Dark the Sun. It's only been recorded by Linda Ronstadt. Right, one time. And a couple other people did it, but it was not as good. And this one is as good. John McEuen, a great bluegrass singer from Newgrass Revival. He now plays with the Doobie Brothers, but he sang it for me. I called him up. I said, Cowan, are you busy this time period, this month? He goes, why, do you want me to sing that song? Yes. I've been trying to get him to do it for 10 years. So I had to do it on my album, She Dark the Sun. And then Acoustic Traveler, and I could take advantage of David Amram, a folk legend, giant. He's 93 years old now. he played with Dizzy Gillespie in Cuba, and anyway, and Andy Gessling, the guy from Railroad Earth, who I'd met at I got an email one night. I was playing a club in the Village, and the email was, "My name's Andy Gessling. Would you like me to come sit in with you?" And I said, that's kind of forward, kind of like to the point. And I wrote back to him, "That sounds like a good idea, Andy. What do you do?" And he says, "I play these instruments." And he wrote down a list of instruments I couldn't believe. I said, "Well, bring everything with the banjo." And I didn't know he was in the group Railroad Earth. And he played great that night at the City Winery in New York. And I played with him a few times, and I had him come play on this album. And he did a great job. Matt Kartsonis was the guy playing with me on and off, who's one of the more talented singers and guitar players. He played John Carter Cash. I got him to do one of his father's songs. And Steve Martin played banjo on a Warren Zevon song. Isn't that cool? A Warren Zevon song with Steve Martin playing banjo? What kind of a combination is that? Oh, you got to listen. And anyway, so that's how it came about. We recorded it with one microphone.
Oh, wow.
One very special stereo microphone. And, people sometimes say, "Oh, this is a $15,000 microphone." Well, this was a $150,000 microphone.
Wow.
And it really makes it sound like surround sound, made in Brooklyn. All the pieces of music on there were done in the first take, one take. I rehearsed the band for 5 days before we recorded. And we'd go in and set up to record a song. We'd play it through once for the engineer. He'd come out to the room and say, "Okay, you move in, you move back, you move over to the left," because you had to get the balance right. It's only one mic. There's no mixing going on. You're not going to turn anything up. And it is some of the best drum sound I've ever had on a record.
Fantastic.
Well, maybe some early Dirt Band stuff. But anyway, it was just wonderful.
Oh, fantastic. All right, we have one last question for you, and then we'll leave you alone for the evening. Sound good?
Alone? Oh, no.
Well, you have an awesome online store on your website. Can you talk a little bit more about I guess maybe the design of it and who's helped you out create that? Because it's a pretty unique web store you got there.
Well, thank you.
Yeah.
I have a website that I think tells the story of what John McEuen has been, and is doing. And I have things on there to sell, like if people want to buy some things, like T-shirts and, the Circle Be Unbroken T-shirts, and the book, The Mountain Whippoorwill, which I made a children's book out of the Mountain Whippoorwill. And that's for fans from the 70s to read to their grandchildren. And I thought that'd be one way to develop that new audience. And T-shirts, the Newsman album. There's a Newsman T-shirt, and the Circle Be Unbroken T-shirts. A couple of CDs and things like that. And bio and pictures of me with my people I've known over the years, like Leon Russell.
Yeah.
And I've had I'm not the level of the people I've been in these photos with. But I can't believe that I've played with Jose Feliciano and Leon Russell and Edgar Winter and Roy Acuff and Maybelle Carter, Earl Scruggs and David Bromberg, and it's just, I try and capture all of that on the website.
Fantastic. Well, we're out of our allotted time for the evening. Is there anything that we left off tonight that you would like to plug or promote?
I'm mainly interested in getting word about the Newsman out there, because in today's world, a solo person putting out a CD or a record or anything of that nature it's just harder to get the news out there, even if it's really good, even if it's being loved by people, because there's so many things being put out. But I think that some of these will stand out. And so I hope people pick up on the Newsman and give it a shot.
Fantastic.
Yeah.
Well, this is how things are going to work out once Jeff, the editing wizard over here, gets us all cleaned up. We'll get this sent to you and your press people, and please share it wherever you possibly can.
Yeah, I'll post this on my website and on the Facebook and all that.
Oh, fantastic.
Yeah.
John, thank you so much. It was an honor to have you tonight.
Yeah, thanks for coming on tonight.
Oh, thank you.
All right, man. Thanks again. Have a great night.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Welcome to the night. You think you know Night Demon? Then the Night Demon Heavy Metal Podcast is for you. Step into the darkness as we peel back the curtain to give you an unprecedented, all-access look into the mind and the heart of the demon. We're talking band history, song analysis, studio anecdotes, stories from the road. It's everything a diehard Night Demon fan could want and more. This is the only place to learn the inside scoop, the deep dive trivia, the untold tales from the band members themselves and those closest to the Night Demon story. Need more? The sacred Night Demon Crypt will be pried open to reveal demo recordings that have never before seen the light of day, all with in-depth commentary by the band and the people who were there for the writing and recording process. This is a gold mine, a treasure trove of all things Night Demon. Head over to nightdemon.net or wherever you listen to podcasts.